This review is actually a few weeks late. I wish I'd done this earlier, but I've kind of been, pondering this for a while now. And this will be my review for the Tales of the Black Freighter / Under the Hood DVD, kind of a supplement to the Watchmen movie. And first thing I want to say about this is kind of how I feel about the Watchmen movie as well. The coolest thing about this is that it got made at all. I mean, obviously, the Black Freighter, when it comes to squeezing the Watchmen book into 3 hours, the Black Freighter was the first thing to go. This story within a story. And it would have been very easy to say, well, we can't have it. But that wasn't good enough for Snyder, and he said, no, let's make like sort of an animated, version of it, and then later we can cut it in for a director's cut. It just shows Snyder doing everything he can to honor as much of Watchmen as possible. And I think it's also cool that he recognized the value of Black Freighter, which I'll talk about a little bit with this. But Under the Hood is actually longer than Black Freighter. It's about 10 minutes longer. So I'm going to start with that. And I also think that Under the Hood is a little more valuable to people who've never read the book. Black Freighter is very important thematically for a number of different reasons. But I think if you haven't read the book and you're seeing the movie, Under the Hood really gives you a lot of more useful information. And really gives the story a lot more depth. And so I'm going to actually start with Under the Hood, even though that's not what's prominently featured on the cover. The first thing that struck me is the intentional low quality of it. When I hit play, I mean, I've got the Blu-ray of this, and I've got watching this on an HD TV, and it had a 4:3 aspect ratio. And at first I was like, what? And then it struck me, oh, duh, of course. That makes perfect sense. This is supposed to be like a mock 80s documentary. Makes perfect sense. It would have a 4:3 aspect ratio. And obviously they're really drawing on some material from the book. In between each chapter there's a short little excerpt from something, and most of it is drawn from Hollis Mason's fictional autobiography, Under the Hood. Which, in the book, the purpose of it is really to just... It's not absolutely essential, but it gives the story and the characters a lot more depth, and makes it feel more real, and makes the whole story just feel richer. And there's a lot of other reasons for it too, but I think that's the main one. I think it was neat how the focus of this whole documentary was on the Minutemen. They didn't really talk about the Crime Busters. Well, in the movie they call them Watchmen. I'll call them the Crime Busters. At all. Any of the main characters in the movie. It was all these minor characters. And they even used characters I didn't expect, like Moloch and Dr. Long. And I think that's cool. I mean, we've seen Rorschach. We've seen Dr. Manhattan. We've seen all that. It's cool to fill in these minor characters. And when you go back and see the movie, like all these little parts, like you kind of know who they are, and it makes the whole story feel, it gives a lot more depth. The spontaneity comes through pretty well. I think that they don't, most of it doesn't feel very scripted. It feels like they're just kind of going with it. I thought the guy that plays Hollis Mason did a particularly good job with that, of making it just kind of going with it, just sitting in a coffee shop, kind of making it up like it's a real interview. I thought that was cool. Essentially, this works as a prequel to the movie, I think. They focus on the Minutemen, how costumed vigilantes got started in the world, how they affected the course of history, and it kind of brings you, the Keene Act and everything, and it kind of brings you up to speed to where the movie starts. And I thought that was really cool. Yeah, it just fills out the whole story. The thing that really surprised me about it, and I think is really cool, is that it asks a lot of... it doesn't betray the fact that this is supposed to be sort of an unbiased documentary, just shown on TV, but it's very in keeping with one of the themes of Watchmen. It asks a lot of the characters are asked in the interviews, do you think that superheroes are good or bad for the world? And there's characters like Wally Weaver, who he only seems to half believe it, but basically says, oh, of course superheroes are good, they're cleaning up our streets, they're heroes doing good. And there's characters like Moloch who think that, well, if the problem with having superheroes is that automatically is going to create supervillains as things escalate, as cheesy as that sounds. He's got a moral point here, that violence is only going to lead to more violence, is kind of the point they're saying. And that's one of the questions that Watchmen asks, is how many people are you willing to kill in order to stop the killing? Are superheroes, would they really be part of the problem, or would they really be part of the solution? And I thought it was cool how they didn't betray the fact that it was a documentary, but managed to ask some really thought-provoking moral questions in keeping with the spirit of Watchmen. And actually, it links it to Tales of the Black Freighter subtly, and maybe this is a good place to transition to that. Tales of the Black Freighter, the thing is, I never really thought of it apart from the Watchmen book here. And you see that when Bernie starts reading it, And obviously it works as kind of an allegory for one of the main characters. I won't give away who it is here. I guess I could, but I'd rather not. It's really an allegory for one of the journey of one of the main characters and some of the moral questions, where some of the morality and the real story. I'll call the real story with Rorschach and all them the real story. Some of the moral issues are kind of subtle. In Black Freighter, it's like black and white. You see what's going on. The point of it is that this is a story about someone who, in his righteous anger to avenge the death of his crew, becomes the very thing he's trying to destroy, which is an important idea in Watchmen. Are superheroes really part of the problem, or would they be part of the solution? You know, there's a lot of cool. And I didn't expect to Watchmen. I never really thought of it apart from the real story. I was like, is this really going to work? Surprisingly, it works pretty well as a cool little standalone short film. I was really surprised. I did not expect that. It works. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting, which is completely appropriate. I mean, I would not advise watching this shortly after eating. There is some disgusting. This is an R-rated cartoon. There's some disgusting stuff, but it's appropriate. You know, as like I said, this is supposed to be like some black and white moral issues here. It's not some of the subtlety that's in the real story. There's some cool little Easter eggs here, like the sail with the blood on it. The pattern is just like the Hiroshima lovers pattern on Rorschach's face. You'll recognize it, and I'm assuming they'll use that to cut that in with in the director's cut version at some point. So there's a lot of cool little things like that. The ending was extremely well done. I could just tell the people making this movie knew what it was about that they included all those lines like, you know, my noble intentions had led to atrocity, and the world I had tried to save was now lost beyond recall. And they end with such a great line, for I was a horror, so amongst horrors must I dwell. Great way to end it, I thought. Which they use a different line than the book does, but I think it works very well. The question now is, how is this gonna, when they're gonna cut this the Black Freighter story in with the movie at some point for a big DVD? Like, it'll be close to 4 hours long, I'm told. And how well is that going to cut in? I'm not sure. After seeing this, if you have the Blu-ray, you can access the BD Live feature, and it'll take you to a clip that actually will kind of give you an idea of how it's going to cut in. And surprisingly, right there at least, it actually worked pretty well. And I'm kind of thinking, I never really thought a Black Freighter would be able to work very well cinematically. That's just one of those things that you can, one of those weird ideas Alan Moore had that works so well because it's a graphic novel, but in a movie, I don't know. But after seeing this clip, maybe it will. Maybe it'll add a lot to it. Maybe it'll make some of the moral issues a little clearer. And so I actually think this could help the movie. One of the things I also think Black Freighter does, that maybe it might do in the movie as well, I don't know, is it gives you... Black Freighter comes out of nowhere. It's like, what's this pirate story? Why is this here? What is the purpose of this? And you don't know. And that's the point. That's what you should do for everything in Watchmen. Why is this here? What does it mean? Because everything in Watchmen has a meaning. There's a purpose behind it. Nothing is by accident in Watchmen. So that's... I think it could essentially accomplish the same thing in the movie. But the common theme that leaks under the hood and Tales of the Black Freighter together is that idea: violence leading to more violence, becoming the very thing you're trying to destroy. Superheroes in their effort to eliminate evil, are they really a part of the solution or part of the problem? Aren't they sort of adding to... I mean, violence might be necessary sometimes, but who watches the Watchmen? Who decides when violence is necessary? In a sense, you're becoming a part of the problem but in your quest to end violence, and this addresses that. That's something that's obviously very relevant in the world today. My overall feelings on this is I'm surprised. Under the Hood was pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be. My one minor complaint would be that it's very slow. If you're not really into the movie or really into the book, you're probably going to get kind of bored, but sit tight. If you haven't read the book, it's really going to give the whole movie a lot more depth. And all those minor characters, like Moloch, that was so cool. I never really thought about what would his views on the vigilantes be. And like Wally Weaver and some of his thoughts on that. And so I think that was great. Black Freighter, surprisingly, it works pretty well. I mean, I did not expect to like this that much, but I have no idea, if you haven't read the book, what on earth you would think of Black Freighter. I think you'd be like, what the heck is this? But maybe when we see it cut back into the movie for the epic 4-hour version of the movie, it'll make more sense, or maybe it won't. I don't know. But I've always said that the theatrical version of Watchmen was just kind of a trailer for the director's cut, and that's kind of, this is just sort of another little clip sort of from that. And so this is all cool and interesting, but it just makes me all the more eager to see the epic 4-hour version, the real cut of the movie, to see how well all this cuts in.